we define a mentally crazy person as the one who've lost touch with the real world, a type of a person who's no longer grounded in reality, an irrational and insane lunatic. And yet, what exactly is rational behavior in a given situation is clearly domain dependent, and context must be taken into account. I touched on this before. A great example would be watching a person playing in VR. Unless you understand what VR actually is and what's really going on, it's easy to misinterpret such a scene for utter madness, akin to a demonic possession or a schizophrenic episode. The player in VR acts rationally within the context he is, while from an outside perspective he looks like a freak. Here's an amusing juxtaposition to brighten your day. A shamanistic ritual doesn't look much different from a really immersed player. These individuals are mentally situated in different domains from the outsiders, and therefore their actions only make sense given the context of their little worlds, which we might not be aware of and which we might not be able to understand. So let's say you've been reading a book or playing a game and someone calls for your attention. Since at that particular moment your mind is immersed in the activity, mentally you're not in the same space with the other person. When sufficiently immersed, any interruption feels like being woken up from a dream. The sudden disconnect is going to completely throw you out of whatever groove you are in, since it takes a while to readjust to the change in surroundings, characters, and context. Think about it in this way. When you are asleep, the dream is all you have. It's a 100% immersive experience, so it perfectly illustrates the idea of losing the objective world. That's why the dream feels so real. That's why we feel real emotions in relation to its events. Because for our brain, that's the whole world. But we don't have to go this far. Have you ever played tabletop with someone who just doesn't care about the game? Oh, it's just a game, hee, why are you guys so mad at cardboard things? Well, that person didn't care because they weren't immersed enough to care. We need to fuse our psyche with the domain in order to feel any emotional attachment to it. It's very important because we feel emotions in relation to a goal, and if collecting a certain set of cards to win is not your actual goal, then it's not surprising that you don't actually stress about it. And it might be difficult to put into words that giving a shit is actually prerequisite to play properly.
It can't happen exactly at that second. That is impossible.
So let's go towards another extreme. Have you ever played with someone who cares way too much? I mean, there should be a reason why people throw controllers into TVs, mash their keyboards, scream at poor customer support workers, and, act like maniacs over any kinds of things. Those damn crazy, irrational, and insane people. Or maybe they're just like you. If it's just a game, why do you have to be mad?
That's a hockey, it's only a game. Why you have to be mad? He's a good guy.
Well, one answer might be is the fact that for an immersed person, it doesn't feel like it's just a game. To him or her, it feels like that's the entire world. It's a mental bubble, a personal universe with its own rules, goals, and story. There's nothing else. And the fact that this bubble is actually a fantasy is effectively irrelevant. The fact that the goals are imaginary is irrelevant. The emotional impact is real, and that's how we define real for ourselves. And we have to be extremely careful waking people up from something that they're very emotionally attached to. I would even go as far as to say that a well put together fantasy feels more real than our actual world. These experiences are carefully and purposefully constructed by professionals to be engrossing all the time. So why not to indulge? Can we say that these disconnected from reality people live much more interesting lives, full of emotions and tangible goals? How else can you explain someone playing video games for 14 hours a day, every day, and for years? Or social media addicts? How can you explain that? Is that a portal for them into a better world? Or is that an escape from the real one? That's a really good question. Is that the triumph of the designer? Or is that the ultimate fall of the individual?